From the studio at Allied headquarters, this is the Allied Angle, where we take an in-depth look at current market trends with industry experts. I'm your host, Amber Guthrie with Allied Solutions. Today, we're excited to welcome back Mark Bugalski, Allied's Executive Vice President and Chief Growth Officer, to dig into what separates a true strategic partnership from just another vendor relationship. And what makes Mark's perspective so valuable here is that Allied doesn't just partner with financial institutions, they also rely on partners themselves. So Mark, welcome back to the show. I think this is number 3 for you, right?
It is, yeah. Great to be back, by the way.
Well, thank you for coming. And all the way in just for us from Florida, right?
I'll do anything for you guys.
Oh, and we set up the studio for you. We've got our lovely yellow chairs, and we laid out the red carpet for you today.
Looks great, yeah.
Just a refresher for our listeners about you. As Executive Vice President and Chief Growth Officer, Mark leads the sales division and financial institutions-related distribution business, sales enablement, operations, and marketing. He joined Allied in 2004 and has more than 30 years of experience in the financial services industry, with extensive experience in sales management, strategic planning, business development, and team building. During his career at Allied, Mark has served as Senior Vice President and Chief Growth Officer and was the Senior Vice President of the Southern Region, where he focused on business development, management, and operational oversight of all markets in Allied's Southern Region. Mark received his Bachelor of Business Administration from Iowa State University Ivy College of Business and holds a professional designation as a chartered life underwriter. Residing in Florida with his family and pets, Mark spends his downtime playing tennis, ice hockey, golf, or biking. So, Mark, it's been a hot second since you've been here, but we still have to put you through our ringer, our accelerated Q&A.
I love that. Let's do it.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Question number 1. What was your favorite 90s TV show?
Easy one. Has to be Seinfeld.
I've seen one episode.
Really?
I'm not.
Just one episode?
I'm not a Seinfeld person, no. My husband, yes. Me, I'm like,
Can I tell you something? So when Seinfeld was on, our kids were small. They were probably 2, 3 at the time. And that was my built-in babysitter for that half hour. I would literally put one of them on one side, one on the other side. And I was into the show, and they didn't know any different, but they would sit there for a half hour and just be fixated on the show. And still to this day, we all love it. Probably one of my top 5 shows of all time.
Oh, that's fun. I'm sure the big actions kind of kept their
It could have been Kramer. I don't know. I mean, but they were into it.
Question number 2. What is the first concert you attended?
Well, that had to be in high school. Mm-hmm. And I promise you have no idea who this band is. But the band was UFO. Do you know it?
Sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm going to say no.
I used to be a heavy metal kid back in the day. Hair was a little bit longer than it is today. But it was.
I think we're going to get pictures for that, by the way. I need some long hair pictures.
I've got them. That was my first concert. It was at the old Chicago Stadium. And it was funny about that one. It was they were a big heavy metal group, and the opening act was this band called the Romantics, and you probably know the Romantics. And I'll tell you what, the crowd for UFO was not the crowd for Romantics. And that, the Romantics were just coming up. They lasted about 3 songs before they got literally booed off the stage. I felt so bad for them, but enjoyed UFO though. It was a good show.
I'm going to say there's a tour manager or somebody that got fired for that one.
I don't know. I just don't know how you combine those two bands on the same stage, because the crowd was different for each one of them.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to say, can you play a air guitar then, if you were a heavy metal kid?
I could do a little Lights Out London on the air guitar if I needed to. Yeah, sure.
We may ask you that here later. All right, question number 3. Where is your happy place?
Got so many of them. I can give you a bunch, but I would say any experience that involves my family. So in other words, we just like to do stuff. And anytime we can go somewhere, do something that we've never done before, even if we've done it before, but just be together and do it. Last month, we went skiing, and we do that. We try to do that every year. Even though we've done it so many times, it's just so great to be together. We get a Airbnb, get a house, everybody hangs out. We're out in the slopes together, come back, cook dinner or whatever, go out today. I mean, it's stuff that as I get older,
and the kids get older.
And the kids get older, it's harder to pull that kind of thing together, so you appreciate it more over time. And, being able to share those different experiences is really great. That's when I'm probably happiest.
Well, it's great too that you can get your kids, with them being adults now, to go with you.
It gets harder, but when you can do it, it's pretty cool.
All right. And question number 4, which actually may tie into your happy place. And we had to come up with a new final question because you've answered the best advice that you've ever been given. So your new question number 4 is, what is one of your favorite memories?
I'd have to say it was my daughter's wedding.
Aww.
So that was a year and a half ago about. Mm-hmm. She got married in October. And I guess it was a favorite memory for a few reasons. One, seeing how happy she was that day, and she's still happy. She's still happy, by the way.
Yeah.
But just seeing how happy she was, and having all of our friends and family there. It was a destination wedding. Mm-hmm. So what was neat about that is you're basically in this spot, this area for 3 days together with your friends, your family. And, it culminates with the actual wedding and, which was beautiful. So again, kind of one of those things, and it does tie in a little bit to my happy place. It's one of the few opportunities that you really get to be together with friends and family in one place, and being able to celebrate something special like a wedding that's so special to our family and just in general. That was a great memory. Yeah.
So it was a recent memory too. So
yeah. I mean, it feels like it was just yesterday, but maybe that's why it was such a good memory, because it, just so many great thoughts around it.
And your family has another wedding coming up in the future, right?
Oh, look at you. Yes, we do. Yes,
so
we
maybe
do.
A second
I'm
favorite
sure,
memory.
I'm sure that'll be 1A and 1B as we get there next March. Yeah.
So you can still hold on to this one then for one more year.
My son's got some work to do to make up for that one, but he'll get there. It'll be a different wedding, different place. Mm-hmm. We love his fiance. We love her family, and so we're excited about it.
Oh, family's just getting bigger all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was lovely, but let's get down to why we are here today. So I want to start by painting the picture of where a lot of financial institutions are right now, because I think it's important to kind of ground this conversation in what people are actually dealing with every day. Mm-hmm. So let's set the stage. A lot of FIs right now are dealing with fragmented legacy systems, batch file processes, manual workloads that just slow everything down and create a real risk for their institution. What are you seeing across the institutions Allied works with, and what does that reality actually look like for them?
Well, you talk about fragmentation, and I think that's important, because when we talk to the CEOs and the executives that we work with, mm-hmm. I would say one of the top 3 concerns in their world is fragmentation. It really has to do with, I would say, 4 things. So you've got legacy core systems that are out there today. You've got point-to-point solutions that have been layered over time. You mentioned batch processing and manual workarounds. Mm-hmm. So you take the combination of all 4 of those things, and that is a recipe to really be an impediment to growth and development. And, and we'll talk hopefully today about just speed to market, which I think is a big thing. But fragmentation really does compromise that. And I think one of the things that's important as we look at where the market is moving and how it's trending is we've got to look at technology more as a connective tissue versus just another capability. Mm-hmm. And it plays out in the numbers. When you look at the numbers, 40% of financial services executives said their biggest impediment to digital transformation has been legacy core systems. And that outdated infrastructure results in an increased expense, budget expense, of 47% on the compliance side versus companies that have already modernized. So the race to modernize, I think, is really critical, but it's tough to do when you're working in a fragmented environment.
All right. So we know, and institutions know, that they need to modernize. And in the middle of all that pressure, most of them don't have the budget, the talent pipeline, or the timeline to build everything in-house. So when we talk about strategic partnerships as a multiplier, what does that actually mean to you? And what separates a partnership that multiplies your capabilities from one that just adds another layer of complexity?
First, I got to tell you, I love this concept of multiplier. Mm-hmm. And that's a term that we're hearing more and more today in the industry, because I think it's relevant. the thing that I like about it, when we talk about it as a force multiplier. And I look at that in the way that Allied partners in the world that we work in today. And we have a lot of partnerships out there. But I also think of it as how Allied wants to be perceived in the industry, more than just a vendor, but really as a force multiplier. And I think it's reflective of a trend that we're seeing or how the industry views potential partnerships. So when I look at force multipliers, I would simply say that they enable organizations to expand and go to market quicker. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of in simple terms. And I think a partnership becomes a force multiplier when it enhances your core strategy and the outcome, the collective outcome of what you're accomplishing is bigger than what each organization can do on their own. And then you contrast that with a distraction. And to me, I guess people maybe look at distractions differently, but to me, a distraction is just a lot of motion without progress. Mm-hmm. And it introduces dependencies that are not necessarily productive and not necessarily even align with what the core strategies are of an organization. So it becomes a distraction. And I think the main difference is when you think about the two, to me, it's impact and alignment. Mm-hmm. A force multiplier focuses on what matters most, and a distraction takes away from it. It's interesting. I saw a stat the other day that only 32% of all digital transformations are considered to be successful, which to me, I don't know about you, but to me, that feels like a low number. Yeah. And I think about that, and I don't think technology is the problem because there's a lot of great technology out there. Mm-hmm. I think what it comes down to is finding the right partnership and alignment. If organizations can really focus on that, I think that success rate and adoption rate goes a lot higher than 32%.
32%, that is a low number.
It is.
Is it just a lot of people blowing hot air out there as far as vendors go, just kind of shiny objects? And
yeah, I think there is, to some degree, a lot of over-promising and over-promoting mm-hmm. that occurs out there. And you've got companies perhaps that are maybe a little bit too ambitious in terms of what they're actually talking about in terms of being able to deliver it in a tangible way to the market. And unless they're totally ready to deliver it, talking about it doesn't do a lot of good. You've got to be able to back up and deliver on the commitments that you're making. Otherwise, going back to being a distraction, and nobody wants that.
Right. So Mark, I think this is the perfect conversation to be having because Allied actually sits on, I guess, both sides of this coin. So not only are you working with clients as a partner, but also working with partners to serve Allied itself. So I think this conversation actually is very helpful and educational to literally anybody out there that needs to hear it. Going back to the multipliers and distractions, how did Allied apply this thinking to its own tech strategy? Rather than trying to just build from scratch, how did you decide to partner? And what did that decision-making process look like internally?
I think we have the same considerations that our clients do. And it comes down, in a lot of cases, to do you build or buy? Mm-hmm. And the reason that's such an important decision is it really is reflective on speed to market. Because right now, speed to market is everything. And I'm not saying that one is right, one is wrong. But it can be expensive if you're in a mindset that you've got to build everything yourself. It can be expensive to go it alone and not tap into all the multi-market expertise that's out there. Mm-hmm. And from Allied's perspective, we've looked at that and really kind of changed our approach and our mindset to say, okay, when does it make sense to build and how quickly can we scale? So when we're looking to expand and grow and scale our organization, we want to make sure that we're looking at everything holistically. And there are going to be situations where it does make sense to build it ourselves. But at the same time, we've also said that we don't want to necessarily just have a one-dimensional view on how we do things. So we've really migrated to this place of being able to partner and leverage some of the expertise that's out there. And we're doing that more and more, at least historically more than we have in the past.
Do you ever look back at a decision and say, we should have bought that, or we should have built that, and do the opposite of what you actually did?
I think we do look back and we try to use those as learning experiences. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, but you want to be able to learn from that. And there have been times where, we've tried to go it alone. There's reasons why you try to do that, but at the same time, you look back and say, there's a lot of capable, qualified potential partners that we could tap into. And maybe it would have worked better if we would have leveraged some of those in the past. And like I said, right now, our mindset has really shifted in a way that we just don't want to lock ourselves into one strategy or one approach.
So you say that you use that as a learning experience, whether if you would go back and change it. Do you use that when you are talking to clients or potential clients? And if they're saying, well, we could totally build that. We could do that ourselves. We could do that in-house. Do you ever step in and say, just, we've done this, take our advice, like that's not territory you want to step into? Is that something that you lead with talking to clients, or just kind of just keep that internally? And
I think you've got to be careful and when you're having those conversations, because organizations have reasons for why they want to do things and how they want to do things. So we certainly want to be respectful of that when we're talking to a client. But at the same time, yeah, we share our experiences, and we have probably 60 different partnerships that we leverage and tap into. And some of the more recent partnerships that we've started really have been a game changer for us in terms of how we look at force multipliers. Regardless of what we advise or what we recommend to our clients, I think there is a definitive shift within the industry, because just going back to how technology cycles are compressing, how consumer demand is changing, I think there's a recognition within the industry that you don't have to build it yourself every time. If you want to scale quickly, I think this concept of speed to market is really becoming evident within the clients that we work with, and it's competitive. So you want to be able to be out there as quickly as possible, but do it in a responsible way. So I do think that there's an awareness now that you don't have to build it yourself every time. And it just becomes a collaborative conversation. We really try to be consultative in that discussion.
all right, so speaking more about this partnership and partnerships, what criteria does Allied look for when partnering to move forward? And what makes Allied just walk away?
When we look at partnerships, and I mentioned we have a lot of them, so we do this all the time, and we keep a pretty disciplined lens in how we view our partnerships. And we're looking at things like relevancy, market conduct, financial strength, information security compliance, scalability, infrastructure, and cultural alignment. So if those are kind of the package that we're looking at whenever we evaluate partnership, because you've got to look, first of all, you've got to look at the strategic alignment. So that has to work. There's got to be a synergy there that's complementary. And then the other thing that's important is integration. The partnerships that we develop, integration has to work. The organization has to be able to plug into our ecosystem without a lot of friction. And then there's got to be measurable value. So we're looking at KPIs, performance indicators, and making sure that the partner that we're utilizing has the capability and the track record to deliver on commitments. But I would say probably one of the most important things that we look at is cultural alignment. And what I mean by that is this collaborative effort to be willing to solve problems together, roll up your sleeves, and make sure that you're on the same page. Because if you're not, you're never going to be able to scale that partnership. If I had to throw maybe one more in there, I would say relevance. It has to be relevant to what the market is looking for today. So yeah, I would say that summarizes how Allied at least looks at partnerships.
Do you use the same kind of checklist when you are trying to be a partner for a client?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All those things I mentioned, we've got to be able to check those boxes ourselves. And, and that's one of the great things about our business model and the diversification that we put behind the way we go to market, the way we present ourselves to our clients, is being able to having our clients know that we have a core competency when it comes to due diligence and vetting our partners in a way that when we go out to market to say, hey, this could be a great solution for you, they know that we have done all the things that's critical, that due diligence, making sure that the financial strength and stability of the organization's there, making sure that they are compliant from an information security perspective, and they're able to deliver on the commitments that we make and we're talking about. So we spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that happens.
So the last partnership that Allied walked away from, or one of the last partnerships, what was it that was like, nope, it's unchecked. We have to have this in order to do this?
I wouldn't say walk away from partnerships, because when we decide to make a commitment to a partner, it is a result of literally months of due diligence. Mm-hmm. So when we get to that point, we're all in on it. But what does happen is we get approached all the time mm-hmm. to say, hey, we'd love to work with Allied. We'd love to work with your team. And we keep an open ear to that. So we will vet and look at potential partners all the time. I would say our adoption rate is pretty low mm-hmm. Because of the standards and the scrutiny that we apply when we do our due diligence. Because anytime we bring a company to market and put the Allied name behind it, it's a reflection on us. And the one thing we never want to do is put ourselves or our clients in a bad position.
So Mark, speaking about criteria for this, PortX, a new product for mm-hmm. an investment for Allied, it's been talk of the town, talk of the building here recently. Since it was such an investment for Allied, and a team that scrutinized this, what was it about PortX that got Allied excited, that made Allied go all in?
I'm glad you brought up PortX because that is a game changer for Allied. And I would say when I think about force multipliers, I look at PortX as a great example. And it's not necessarily because they have this great technology, which they do. It was really when we went through the process of looking to partner with PortX, we quickly realized that there was a shared alignment in terms of our vision of what we needed, and our need at the time, and still is, and this is what we're bringing to market, is being able to simplify data integration for our clients and do that in a way that accelerates the process, because as we talked about, speed is critical right now, and data is important. So what's great about the PortX relationship is they were able to check those boxes as a provider to enable that process and do it in a way where it didn't create a lot of friction and complexities in terms of slowing down or becoming a distraction. From a multiplier perspective, check. From a distraction standpoint, not even close. They really were able to support and still are able to support what we're trying to do in terms of helping simplify that data integration component between third parties, core systems, and our clients in general. One of the things that's unique about PortX and the relationship that we have that, in my mind, makes it a force multiplier is the fact that we are an investor, we're a client, and we're a distributor. So when you think about all of that and the impact that can make, not just for Allied, but for our clients overall, I think that's a huge statement to say, this really is a unique type of partner. This is a force multiplier partner. It will advance our business and will help our clients advance their business.
And that's an excellent way to even look at that too, is that you can go to your clients and say, we're not just, touting this around. Like, we actually honestly believe in it because we're doing it too. So if it works for us, we want it to work for you too.
I think it speaks to credibility. I think it speaks to trust. Mm-hmm. And if it's good for Allied, it's good for our clients.
Is this the first partnership that you have had like this?
Not necessarily. The first partnership where I think we check all three of those boxes, but one of the things we're really expanding on at Allied is our M&A strategy. So we are investing in acquiring companies at a clip faster than we ever have. I think it helps us scale our business. It helps us deliver more value to our clients. So there are examples where we are investors and distribute, but not necessarily hit all three of those boxes. This is one of those examples, though.
Did you look at PortX when it came in and you were like, where have you been all of our lives?
It was funny because when we were learning about it and really diving in and understanding what the capabilities were, that was kind of the aha moment with PortX, because we know the challenge, the concern that executives have today in being able to integrate into different disparate systems. It keeps executives up at night. So being able to bring a solution to market that can bridge that gap and address that concern was not just an aha moment, it was an exciting moment for Allied to say, you know what, this potentially changes the trajectory of what we're doing as an organization and how we can impact the industry.
So I promise I'm not trying to turn this into a PortX pitch, but it's just fascinating. So, I mean, I'm sure you're using that excitement to your clients. What are you hearing? Are people, do they see your excitement about this? And therefore they're like, well, if you're doing it, this is brilliant and we're excited too. And this is everything we've ever needed in life. Is the momentum building around it?
I think it's getting there. We're still in the introductory stage right now where we are piloting some of this. But what I can tell you is when we went to our advisory board, our advisory council, which is made up of CEOs around the country, and we talked to them about this partnership that we were considering with PortX and the capabilities that PortX would deliver. Every one of them said, you are totally on the right track, and let me know when you have it because I'm signing up. Yeah. So that was great validation to say, you know what, this is something that the market not just needs, but the market is ready for.
The right time and the right place.
That's what it comes down to a lot of times, yeah.
So, Mark, you have touched on this a couple of times, so let's dig into speed to market. It feels like the real differentiator right now. Why does speed matter so much for FIs in this moment? And how does Allied's own sense of urgency mirror what your clients are feeling?
Because it's competitive. It is a competitive market out there. And what's interesting is you're not just competing against other financial institutions, you're competing against fintechs. There was a McKinsey study that came out recently that projected the pace of revenue growth among fintechs is going to be 3 times higher than traditional banking by 2028. So that's a competitive gap that we're all trying to bridge right now. And
that's
everybody,
very soon too.
It is, and everybody's aware of it. And there are probably reasons why fintech growth and revenue growth is happening at a clip as quickly as it is. But to answer your question about speed, from a market perspective, speed is really what enables a lot of things to happen. If you can go to market, if you can launch faster, you can learn faster, you can learn more. And if you learn more, you can make better decisions. And from there, that's when you start to build that competitive differentiation in the market in terms of being able to see the things that are unique to your strengths as an organization, but you got to be able to get there quickly. And we're seeing it within the industry. You see it right now with digital lending, embedded finance, AI. AI is a big one. I mean, talk about the pace of speed with AI, even within our organization. So when I think about Allied, there's probably 3 areas that we're leaning into really hard right now. One is the pace of our API development. So that goes back again to our ability to help organizations integrate data to each other and back and forth within the industry. The way that we are approaching digital engagement with our clients and their consumers is faster than we have ever seen it. And then I think the other thing that we're doing, and I've seen a huge shift in this, not just industry-wide, but from an Allied perspective, the adoption rate of AI to create efficiency and proficiency in our day-to-day business. It's been staggering, but exciting. I mean, it's a good thing, trust me. And what excites me is I look at what our position was on AI a year ago to where it is today, and how we are using AI from a coding perspective with our enterprise technology group, how we're embedding AI into our consumer-facing solutions. And I see how that's evolved over the last year. What excites me is thinking about how that's even going to change within the next 6 to 12 months, and being able to advance some of our internal processes to be even more competitive and create more value out there in the market.
So what are you seeing out in the field as far as with it being competitive, speed to market? How's the adoption for the institutions with AI being such a big deal right now? Are they on board? Are they a little hesitant because it's new and it can be tricky? And
I think they're getting there.
Okay.
I think they're getting there. And that's not a negative, because you think about where we were a year ago. And you've got to be a little bit cautious around AI and how you apply AI, because you've got potential exposure out there to fraud, maybe some compliance risk within AI. So you've got to be prudent on how you deploy AI into your environment. So I would say there is definitely an appetite out there to try to embed AI more and more into day-to-day processes. But you've got to be discerning of how and when you apply AI, because you don't want to get ahead of your skis too far when that's concerned, because there is risk. There's still risk out there. So, and we're well aware of it on the Allied side, but I think we've taken a measured approach. But the speed at which we have incorporated AI has been exponential, if I had to look at it just over the last 12 months. And I think we'll start to see that in the industry as people become more educated and knowledgeable about where AI makes sense and maybe where it doesn't make sense. But it has so many applications.
how do you feel about Allied's pace with AI right now? Do you feel like that's something that should have tackled sooner? We're a little ahead of the game, or you're comfortable where we're at and everything has been a good...
It feels right. I mean, to me, it feels right, because you never want to be on that bleeding edge where you go out there and you just stumble all over yourself. But at the same time, you don't want to be a lagger also. And I feel like Allied has paced pretty well with that. And again, if you hear any type of caution, it is centered around the potential risk with AI. Because a lot of it, I think you said it earlier, the shiny object. AI could be considered one of those shiny objects. And you don't want to get too caught up in the enthusiasm of a shiny object without being smart on how you deploy it and how you utilize it.
So you touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive in just a bit more. What does it look like when a partnership is a distraction and actually slows you down and adds implementation complexity and extends timelines instead of compressing them?
That's bad.
Just one word, bad.
No, it is bad, because, and hopefully you don't experience this too much out there, but I look at partnerships that are distractions. Those tend to be self-serving and maybe one-dimensional, one-sided, where I wouldn't even qualify it as a partnership. I look at it as a vendor relationship. And that's something that, as an organization, we strive not to be in that bucket. We really want to be in the bucket of, this is a strategic partner. Allied is a force multiplier, because when you have distractions out there, they become time consuming because of the complexities and dependencies that go along with that, and the lack of understanding of what's important to the organization, and really not connecting with the voice of the consumer. And that's really, a lot of it comes down to understanding what's important to the ultimate end user, the consumer, because we're all here to serve our clients and the consumers that we work with.
All right, so Allied has gone through its own internal transformation around how tech connects across the business. Can you walk us through what that shift has looked like and why it matters that Allied is living this before bringing it to their own clients?
Well, I think you've got to lead by example. And I think it says a lot about our organization and the fact that just because we've always done something one way, that doesn't mean that we have to do it that way all the time. Mm-hmm. And so we've looked at our infrastructure, we've looked at our ecosystem and said, you know what, there are ways to do this better, more efficiently. So that's where we've leaned into looking at more partnering versus building, starting to get away a little bit from point-to-point solutions and looking at developing APIs that we can help create more efficiency within our business and really focusing on the strengths of our organization. And when I think about Allied, I say we are a very relationship-driven company. We have an incredible product strategy. We emphasize what that client experience looks like. And it's critical that we deliver on our commitments. So the fact that we are willing and able to analyze this entire ecosystem that we have and make some pivots along the way to best serve the market is a great example for not just the people here at Allied, but I think what the market sees in terms of how flexible we can be as an organization.
Is this something that clients see and make comments about of Allied to say that we see that you're doing this first before coming to us and we appreciate that? Is that something that's out there and that's known and they recognize, or is it kind of you pride yourself on it, but we can keep that to ourselves because we know we're doing the right thing?
I think in some cases there is a clear and visible recognition of the innovation that we're making, and maybe not the behind the scenes understanding of exactly what we're doing, but there certainly is a recognition of the innovation. And I think a lot of that is validated when you look at the tenure of our partnerships and relationships we have with our clients. We work in a wildly competitive environment. And the fact that we're able to be fortunate enough to have these tenured relationships with clients, I think says a lot about how they feel about us. It's also reflected in our year-over-year growth. That we're averaging about a 12% year-over-year growth in our business. And it continues to increase and continues to expand. And, it just comes down to being able to deliver on the promise that you make and add optimal value to the industry.
So with the credibility you were talking about earlier, if you're seeing that 12%, that means your clients are also seeing growth because, they've put that trust in you. If it's working for you, it's working for others. So it's rising tides lift all boats kind of mentality.
I would say, though, it's all about results. Mm-hmm. When I said our relationships are important, and they are, but at the end of the day, if we're not generating results for our clients, we're not doing our job. And I think that is the ultimate indicator of how happy and satisfied our clients are with Allied because we're able to drive results and grow their business.
So looking ahead, how does open banking readiness fit into the picture? Why are the institutions that build this connective foundation now going to be the ones still competing in 5 years?
So open banking is really about the exchange of data and creating transparency between institutions and between their consumers. And it is just a continuous growth trajectory for open banking. You look at the compounded annual growth rate of open banking in the world today, it's moving at about a 24 to 25% clip growth rate. This year, it's projected to be at $48 billion. At the end of 2023, it's projected to be at $135 billion. So you've got this adoption rate that's occurring within not just the U.S., but the world. And the volume of institutions is continuing to expand as far as the open banking platform is concerned. Right now, there's probably roughly about 80 countries that are utilizing open banking or developing it in some capacity. So it's not one of those things that is going to happen in the future. It's a thing that's happening now. Mm-hmm. And then you look at what's happening, like here in the U.S., as an example, you look at the CFPB and their 1033 rulemaking, which is all about open banking. Mm-hmm. And that is starting to increase the urgency of open banking. And then you have the enabler, which is the financial data exchange. That is kind of the API bridge around open banking. And right now, if you look at the volume coming through the financial data exchange, there's roughly 114 million consumer transactions that are occurring around that. And then, going back to the worldwide view on open banking, you've got 470 million people that are currently part of this. And then from a global institution perspective, 65% of all global institutions are in some form or facet of open banking. So it's a term that's been out there for a while. But what we're seeing now is this adoption rate, and from a regulatory perspective, it has become more and more critical. So when I think about our ability to move data back and forth and facilitate that in a simplified environment, that's where the value comes in. It is shortcutting that process to get people up to speed and in a position to play in that open banking space.
And so they can be here in 5-10 years and more.
Oh, absolutely. It's not going away. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the organizations that I think are going to thrive are the ones that can support open banking and how to be a factor as far as that's concerned.
So we've talked about a lot of positive things, but what are some of the red flags that you would want our listeners to watch out for? For example, partnerships that are built on convenience instead of strategy, or as we said earlier, kind of that shiny object.
I think all organizations have their way of vetting out and filtering, some of the things that may appear to be too good than they really are. But it goes back to that shiny object mentality. And I think if we were looking at red flags, we would look at how does a solution truly connect to your mission? I think the other thing that comes along with that is how much customization is involved in that solution. Because you don't want to jump in feet first when you've got something that isn't connecting to your mission or requires a lot of customization or is based on assumptions. For example, if you have to ask yourself the question, well, we think this will work if XYZ happens, or if we can do this, then we're going to have this result. The more times you've got to ask yourself if, to me, that would be a red flag. And strong partnerships are built around connections and optimization of results and alignment around priorities. And that's pretty clear cut. When that happens, and everything else is noise if we're not hitting that area. So yeah, those are some of the red flags on customization, requirements, qualifiers, if it's going to work, if it isn't going to work. So those are the things to keep in mind.
All right. So for the bank or credit union leader listening right now, who's managing dozens of vendor relationships, what's the first question they should be asking themselves to figure out which ones are multipliers and which ones are distractions?
I think it goes back to priorities and objectives. So whatever you're looking at, does it align with your priorities? I think that has to be an absolute first question. And a second question maybe would be, does it simplify or add complexity to my environment today? And then if I had to throw a third one in there, how can we measure the impact in a reasonable time frame? So, because you've got to be able to track it and then make adjustments if you need to. Again, everybody has their way of analyzing these things. But I think to me, that's a good pressure test to ask those three questions. And if the answer to any one of them is, this probably doesn't feel right, if it doesn't hit one of those questions, then maybe time to move on.
How often do you see somebody that might be vetting out a vendor, they've gone through their checklist, there are red flags, probably should turn away, but the price is right? How much because money obviously makes the world go round, how much does money influence kind of making these red flags a little less red?
I think it's a consideration for sure. But it's interesting. With the organizations that we're talking to, I think there is a level of sophistication that maybe filters out price as the most important driver. I mean, price is part of it. But I think as these organizations become more sophisticated and they become larger, they're looking at all the things that we've been talking about today. They're looking at, is this company going to help me grow my business? Is it going to be a force multiplier? or is it going to be a distraction? So I think that mindset around that is more prevalent today than it ever has been.
Well, Mark, this has been a fabulous and different conversation for us. I've enjoyed it a lot. Final thoughts. Is anything that I haven't asked that you just think that our listeners need to know?
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting this discussion. And I love this topic because it is something we don't talk about every day, but I think it's the reality of what we're seeing and what we're working in. And to me, this whole conversation centers around growth. It centers around data, and it centers around how we can help grow the industry. For me, growth isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things faster. So I think the organizations that will win today are those that align with the right partners, simplify their environment, and use speed as a differentiator. And I'll tell you this one more too that I would throw in there, and that's trust. Trust is critical in any core strategy, but I think trust is critical as a force multiplier. And what I mean by that is you've got to be able to discern these companies that are out there. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier too, that are over-promising, over-promoting what they can do. Mm-hmm. If you're not careful, that can have a negative impact. It can be a distraction. And the one thing you don't want to do is get too caught up in something that isn't ready to go to market because it just takes up more of your bandwidth, more of your time. So when you're in that due diligence phase or process, just go into it with the mindset of how close can we get to this partner, this solution being a force multiplier versus a distraction.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah.
Mark, it's always great to have you on the show. I think what makes this conversation stick is that you are not speaking from the sidelines, but you've actually been on both sides of the partnership table, and I think that really does come through for our listeners. So for everyone listening, I hope this gives you a sharper lens for evaluating the relationships that are driving your business forward and the ones that might not be. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone in your network who needs to hear it. Thanks for tuning in to The Allied Angle, and we will see you next time. If you want to learn more about unlocking AI ROI through better data integration, be sure to register for the April 30th America's Credit Unions webinar featuring Allied's Charlie Peterson and PortX's CEO, David Wexler. Register online at alliedsolutions.net/events.